Hi boys and girls, welcome back to Mr. Brakefield Reads. It is Thursday and we are a day late. Sorry about that, but better late than never. And I'll still do a video for tomorrow as well, so don't worry about that. So we are on chapter 12 now, and in chapter 11, Stan and Pearl were being chased by this Bur Fairy. It was a creature. It was actually Harry, wasn't it? Harry the fairy, and he had turned into this strange flying monster-like thing. Anyway, he chased Pearl and Stan, and they felt that they had no way out. There was no way to save them. So chapter 12 is called The Chase. I will never forget what happened next. Never. I cowered on the rocks, Pearl cowering beside me. Then, far out in Shiversands Cove, we heard a splash. The huge splash of a sea monster leaping out of the water. Across the cove, the sea monster came surging. It surged towards the rocks, towards me, towards Pearl, towards the Bur Fairy. Then, right by the rocks, the sea monster reared up. It towered above us. The huge frill shot out and stood up, all around its head. Its long snout started snapping open and shut, open and shut. Then, smack! Down went its huge tail fin. Up and down, smacking flat on the water, drenching me, drenching Pearl with huge showers of spray, and drenching the Bur Fairy. Head to foot, that huge hairy Bur Fairy was soaked. He was soaked from the top of his huge hairy head to the ends of his huge hairy paws. His hair was plastered flat against his huge Bur Fairy body. He was dripping. He was draggled. His wings were waterlogged and drooping, and the Bur Fairy was not happy. He snarled at the sea monster. He growled and he raged. Then he started shaking. Shaking and shaking and shaking. Shaking like Bagel did after a swim in the river. Shaking himself dry. I just knew that now, this moment, while he was shaking, this was our chance to escape. We had to take it. And there was only one way I could think of. Jump, I said to Pearl. Jump! And we did, both of us. We jumped straight down off the rocks and onto the sea monster's back. The sea monster shot off, with us both clinging on, arms clasped round its slippery, fishy neck. It plunged away from Tide Island, powering through the water, waves of spray swooshing either side of it. Faster and faster and faster it swam, but not fast enough. We heard a snarl behind us, the snarl of a Bur Fairy, hot on the sea monster's tail. I clung on, panicking. How long could we hang on? Who would tire first? A sea monster or a Bur Fairy? And where was the sea monster going? The sea monster swerved round Tide Island, straight into Light Sands Bay. Then, disaster. I heard the toot of a horn and the chug of an engine. I heard music. I heard laughter. Then I saw it. A pleasure boat. A big party boat, full of lights and full of people, and we were heading straight for it. The sea monster swerved, it skidded right, skidded left, and shuddered to a halt. I lost my grip, and so did Pearl. Both of us were thrown off its back and straight up in the air, which is where the Bur Fairy swooped. He swooped towards me as I hurled skywards. Then he grabbed me in his huge hairy paws. Behind me, below me, I heard a big splash. The splash of Pearl, crash landing in the water. But there was no crash landing for me. I was airborne and dangling, trapped in the paws of a huge, hairy Bur Fairy. Higher and higher we flew up above the water. I felt helpless. I felt terrified. I felt very, very alone. Then I heard something. The big town clock of Light Sands Bay was beginning to strike. Once, twice, 7 times, and a cheer went up. I knew what that cheer was for. The fireworks were about to begin. The fireworks. Fireworks! Thoughts stampeded through my head. Thoughts about fireworks and thoughts about Rory's dog Bagel. I remembered how Bagel hated fireworks. How he had to be shut in. How he howled and panicked. How he went crazy at the sounds and the lights. How all dogs did. A feeling surged through me. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't just dogs who were terrified of fireworks. Maybe wolves were too. Werewolves. Or Bur Fairies. I leaned all my weight to one side. I was going to force the Bur Fairy to turn and to fly where I wanted, straight towards the fireworks. Then they began. First, a huge rocket screeched up into the sky, then exploded in a shower of thousands and thousands of tiny hot sparks. Then there were more and more huge fireworks all going off, one after another. The sky was ablaze with a dazzling display of lights and sounds. The Bur Fairy was trembling, panicking. He didn't know which way to go. He was whimpering and quivering and flapping about in the sky. Then another rocket soared straight towards us, screeching its way over the end of one huge Bur Fairy wing. I smelt burning. I heard sizzling. The Bur Fairy howled in pain, then he dropped me. I plummeted. Down and down I went like a stone. Then I crash-landed, but not in the water. I smacked down onto the tarpaulin cover of the pleasure boat. I slid down the cover and onto the deck and landed sprawled at the feet of two small kids sucking on lollipops. And there's the view of Stan falling off the Bur Fairy. They gaped down at me, then gaped up at the sky, gaped up at the hairy, flapping figure with one smouldering wing. And all three of us watched the Bur Fairy, flapping and flapping and flapping, flapping his way out to sea. We watched him disappearing into the distance, flapping like he was never, ever going to stop. And then the Bur Fairy was gone. Okay, so the next time we read, which will be tomorrow, we are on the very final chapter, chapter 13. So I'll see you then. In the meantime, stay safe and happy reading. Bye, boys and girls.